Do you have constitutional questions? Get constitutional answers. We'll be answering your constitutional questions live, so get ready to call in now. Are you a prosecutor, law enforcement officer, or local government employee? Want to make sure you are executing the laws in a constitutional manner? Are you a city council member, township board member, or state legislator? Want to ensure the laws you pass are constitutional? Perhaps you're a citizen who wants to know the proper limits on government and the protections for your God-given liberties. Regardless of your role, call me, Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, with your constitutional questions during our live call-in show now at the phone number listed on the screen. And remember, together we can restore freedom.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, guys. Hello. Welcome to Restore Freedom Weekly. I unfortunately have to start with our usual tech issues because, well, of course, don't you know, it wouldn't be a usual Restore Freedom Weekly Tuesday call-in show if we were not having some sort of technological issues. My microphone appears to be working, but is not registering that any sound is being generated when I use my normal mic. So I have turned it on to the mic that's through the webcam, which is not the best mic, you guys have told me in the past, which is why for the last 2 years we've had this microphone. So I want you guys to tell me how things are going, if you can hear me okay. And I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm trying to wait to see what you guys say. But, okay, I do have audio. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on with my microphone. I really hope we get it resolved before the next show because it works a lot better. And I know I'm instinctively going to be trying to go to this mic. In fact, I don't know how we're going to do the call-in aspect of the show today because we might get some feedback because normally I'm hearing the call through my microphone earbuds, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I could still do that. So, all right. Thanks for the feedback, guys. I really appreciate that, letting me know how things are going. So now that I know you can hear me, I will do my usual routine at the beginning and say, hello, welcome to Restore Freedom. I am Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, and this is our every other week live call-in show where you can call and ask your legal and constitutional questions, and hopefully we'll get you sent in the right direction to know how to best defend your own God-given liberties. So, oh, good. Audio seems fine for some people. Better than fine. 10 out of 10 I'm getting, so that's good. All right, so with that being said, I do want to encourage you guys to go ahead and ask any questions that you have, legal or constitutional or otherwise. But in the meantime, until I see those questions starting to come in, I'm going to briefly, I guess I'll throw in the, I'll switch screens in a minute to actually throw up the call phone number on the screen in just a minute. Some of you might already know what it is. Those of you who call on a frequent basis probably have it memorized by now. But at any rate, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on where I see Restore Freedom going in 2026. My mission still remains to best advocate for our God-given liberties, to defend the Constitution, to hold government officials accountable, and empower you as part of we the people to do the same. And as part of that mission, I realize that, as sad as it may be in this day and age, we have so much going on. our brains are just on overload all the time. It's work, work, work for a lot of people. That when it comes to um, being able to really feel like we could do something, it needs to be a little bit more bite-sized segments. We'll have this show, this call-in show. I foresee this going, continuing at least through 2026, twice a month. So on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month at noon Eastern Standard Time, you can continue to call in with your legal and constitutional questions. And I will try to do some of those shorter videos. For those of you who don't, who maybe are new to the channel, of course, my husband is texting me when he knows that we're on. Okay, he totally forgot that the show is going. I'm going to tell him because he's one of the few people that can get through, and it's going to ding more. Okay, so now he knows I'm on live. So, anyway, so I forget where I was, guys. Sorry about that. Just trying to tell you guys what I see for 2026. Those shorter videos. I would love to get more of the 10-minute and under videos out there so we can have them on all the platforms. TikTok, Facebook. I think I was putting them on Twitter. Of course, YouTube. I don't know if I'll keep putting stuff on Rumble or not, because Lori was my go-to gal for that, and I know she hasn't been able to do that in the last few months, so I don't know. We'll see what's what with that. But anyway, I'd love to get more of those 10-minute videos of bite-sized nuggets of different, new court cases that are coming out, or just different things that are happening. It is really hard for me, though, because I, no joke, spend about 40 hours of work on a 10-minute video. I wish I were joking on that. First of all, I'm a perfectionist. But second of all, because it's not a short video, or excuse me, because it's not a long video like this. On a video like this, it's more conversational, it's more relaxed. I can look right in the camera and I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff because I'm not worried about cramming in all kinds of stuff into a very small segment of time and have it all remain relevant to a specific topic. I'm going to answer your questions the best I can. And we're going to have conversation. We're going to go back and forth if there's somebody on the line or if I see there's a chat, etc. No, my husband is, sorry, my husband is a subscriber. He is, he's at work right now. So, and he gets very limited time for lunch. And so he's not generally on YouTube throughout the workday because of the kind, he works on machines, he designs, he's out on the floor. He often doesn't even have his phone anywhere near him. So, but when he can, and I just told him that I'm on live, so he'll probably join us if I were to guess. So, okay, so Liberty Warrior, I'm going to hold you to that. Liberty Warrior is offering to create a template for me that'll make it easier for me. I would love that. That would be fantastic because I've tried all different kinds of free, places that have the graphics and different things to make it more lively. I've done some videos where it's 10-minute videos of just me talking at you. I've done 10-minute videos of me talking, a combination of me talking and then doing slides. No matter what I do, it ends up taking just an inordinate amount of time. And I always back up what I have to say, right? I'm not someone that just goes out there. Some of these attorney channels, they're like, oh, this is totally, illegal or unconstitutional. And then they're just asking you to take their word for it. They don't back it up. They don't have citations in their videos. They don't have any clickable links in their descriptions or anything like that. I try to do things where you guys have the information at your fingertips that I had, what I was talking about, the underlying laws, cases, whatever it is I'm referencing, so that you can go and check it out yourself and you don't have to take my word for it. That's, you're going to help me make a template. He's emphasizing help me. Thanks a lot. I don't know what that means. That sounds like 40 hours of work just to create a template that will still maybe take me 30 hours of work. Anyway, okay. Mr. Catherine Henry has joined the chat. He says, I'm here and I'm subscribed, but I don't get the notifications. Also, just for those of you, I don't know if anybody's in the chat right now that has their own YouTube channel that does freedom fighting work that you would think I'm subscribed to. Just so you know, I probably am subscribed, but I also don't get notifications. I've never gotten a notification ever for any of the channels I'm subscribed to when they're going live. Isn't that crazy? I just realized that now that Mike's talking about not getting notifications. Also, just so you guys know, I know this is not Facebook, and I know YouTube doesn't do the messaging like Facebook does, thank goodness. But my Facebook Messenger does not work, and it hasn't worked since 2020, since May of 2020. And I think I broke it because I had thousands, literally thousands of people messaging me on a regular basis, asking me all kinds of questions, some sending death threats because I was fighting for freedom, heaven forbid. But a lot of people asking for questions and help and things like that in fighting the executive orders that the governor was doing in Michigan in 2020. And I had people from all over the country asking me questions. So at any rate, it doesn't work. So if you try to find me on there, I do have a Facebook set up. I have a page and then I have my personal profile. Don't send me messages through Facebook because it doesn't work. Anyway. All right. So I think that's all of that. What I do want to tell you though is so the bite-sized nuggets that I was talking about, I do want to try to do more of those 10-minute videos, but I don't know how, how likely that will be just given how much time I put into those. But what I have been trying to do is a series of smaller posts. So of course, I still need to encourage you guys to check out that Restore Freedom merchandise, the pop sockets, the window decals, the car magnets. There's not a lot. It doesn't cost a lot of money. And I know in this economy, every dollar, every penny counts. But I do ask you guys to keep that in mind because it's an easy way to have you help spread the word and have somebody have a QR code that they could easily go to. The only thing I think the QR code is not on is the pop socket because that would have been the entire pop socket. Anyway, so, but it does say Restore Freedom, and if they Google it, they're going to find us, right? So anyway, that I send out on Tuesdays as our midweek merch. Wednesdays, what I'm doing is sharing a little bit of my health and wellness research that a lot of you guys that maybe just sign in for the Tuesday shows on YouTube probably have no idea what I'm talking about there. But I shared a post on my Facebook account about a month ago, I think it was, where I was telling, I shared a few snippets of screenshots of my super OCD spreadsheets about my health and wellness stuff, my research about things I can eat, things I can't eat, just things, not even things about eating, but things that you just don't want involved in your personal care products, your shampoos, your deodorants, your whatever. It's way more, involved these days. The things you have to watch out for is far more complex than what it used to be because they put a lot more crap in there, first of all. Sorry, guys. I no longer have an easy mute button either, like I do on the top of my mic, so I would normally mute for things like that. But anyway, so I had a lot of interest. A lot of interest. I had hundreds of people either comment on the one post or email me, text me, or reach me some other way. So, so with all that being said, what I decided to do was share little bite-sized nuggets, if you will, of the main things that I'm going to focus on personally from here on out, at least in 2026. I mean, let's take it one step at a time, right? Let's take this year and then next year we'll see what happens. But just to try to make sure that I'm healthy, that my family is healthy. Obviously, for those of you who've been around for at least a few months, if not the last couple of years, you know that a year and a half ago, was diagnosed with breast cancer and had 3 extensive surgeries and all that entails. And so anything that I could do to be a little bit more mindful, I don't think I caused my own cancer, but I'm just trying to be a little bit more mindful about the kinds of things out there that can cause other types of cancers, other kinds of health issues. And I certainly need my husband to remain healthy because me doing this Restore Freedom work and answering questions for people and trying to get information out there about new cases, new bills that are pending in legislatures, that kind of thing. It's actually costing our family money. I had $667 donated last year to the Restore Freedom effort. Total. $667 total Restore Freedom donated to Restore Freedom efforts. Now, I will say that in all fairness to those of you, I didn't do a whole lot more than the twice a month videos answering questions. There were some people that emailed, and I directed them in one way or another if it was easy enough for me to do that way. I don't usually have a lot of time and resources to do that, so I'm not encouraging you to reach out via email for those kinds of things. In fact, a lot of times when people email me, I encourage them to reach out during the show, because whatever questions they may have may very well be something that if I answer them publicly, you would be able to benefit from them as well. Um, so, um, anyway, um, sorry, I got really distracted by one of the comments. I'm not sure if it was connected or responding to somebody else's comment on the video, so I apologize for my distraction there. But anyway, so I have no idea. I feel like I had 6 trains of thought all going at once, and that one comment really, really threw me for a loop. But I will be sharing my wellness research with you, Wellness Wednesdays, on Wednesdays. I will be sharing on Thursdays. I'm going to call it Throwback Thursday, and it's going to be a little tidbit or main point or something about an important U.S. Supreme Court case, a prior U.S. Supreme Court case. That's not going to be the time where I'll be discussing new cases, because that in theory is going to be when I'll be doing those shorter videos, or even just if it's a one quick tidbit, I'll just share it in a quick post. But it's the cases. I think last week was Marbury versus Madison. This week I haven't decided yet what the post will be about, but you'll see that it's, I'm trying to work my way forward in terms of generally constitutional related cases, which obviously is a huge amount of cases there. And quite frankly, if you think about it in one way or another, if the U.S. Supreme Court is deciding a case, it should inherently be constitutionally related, right? But anyway, that's another topic for another day. So that's Thursdays. Fridays, I'm continuing to share a freedom fighting tool. I didn't do as much of it last year, but I had been doing it in years past. And this year, it's not just going to be a particular thing like the Black's Law Dictionary, which I'm going to bring back. I'm going to rejuvenate that sometime in the next couple months here, because I think it is very important. And I'll tell you more about that why later on. But I'm going to focus on freedom fighting groups or channels. For example, I don't know, I scheduled a bunch of them out, so I don't remember if it's ones that shared out yet, but I think last week was my friend Micah, 2A-EDU. 2A-EDU's channel, I think he's on Facebook and YouTube with that handle, and probably other social media platforms, but his main platform, I believe, is on YouTube. So if you have any interest in learning more about firearms or cases affecting firearms or any kind of thing like that at all, then check out 2A-EDU's channel, because he goes through a lot of stuff. He's been on my channel, I've been on his channel. It's been a while. I should probably reach out to him. And actually, there's some new bills coming down the pike in Florida, in the Florida State Legislature, that I need to get his take on as well. So we might maybe just do a live about those things. At any rate, that is Friday. Saturday, what I want to do is empower you to learn more about not only your own state constitution, but the state constitution of those. And I do see it looks like we might have a question in there. So I'm going to, once I wrap this up, I'm going to start answering that question if there were any others. But anyway, so what I want you guys to do is definitely learn about our U.S. Constitution, right? You cannot defend your own liberties if you don't know what's specifically protected in the U.S. Constitution. If you don't know what the Constitution says, you can't use it to defend your God-given liberties. Also, the state constitutions are important. You need to know your own state constitution frontward and backward. And I know 99.99% of people don't know a single clause. They can't name a single clause in their state constitution. And, ooh, that gives me an idea for maybe a series of how to be out in public, asking people on the street things about our state constitution. That would be an interesting way to address it. Anyway, sorry, light bulb went off. Maybe something we could look at addressing later on this year. But everybody needs to know about their own state constitution. But not only that, you really need to know about state constitutions in states that you frequent. Do you work out of state? Do you often travel out of state for your work? Do you travel to other states for visiting family and friends? Do you just have a favorite vacation spot? You know, maybe you live in Michigan, but you have this favorite national park that you like to visit in California. You damn well better know what's in the what's in the California Constitution if you want to go and visit California, because there's a lot of unconstitutional laws on the books there. And at least if you have a starting point of what your rights are there, it might help you to just simply live your life and have that vacation and return home in one piece. Okay. So anyway, each week I'm sharing just the link to get you to the state constitution for each state. So I've already shared, I think, Alabama and Alaska. Maybe I've just shared Alabama. I have them all, they're all scheduled. I have them scheduled all the way out for the rest of the year. But make sure to take a look at those state constitutions. And I would encourage you, even if you don't regularly travel anywhere and you feel like you have a good comfort level with your own state constitution, every time I share one of those state constitution links on a Saturday, I call it State Constitution Saturdays, I want you to take a look at open the link, no matter what state it is. If you're like, I'm never going to go to Delaware and this week is Delaware, I don't care. Open it up and just take a look, just peruse. I want you to, at the very least, read the preamble and the Declaration of Rights, which is usually the first section in the state constitution. Just read those and get familiar with them and see what kinds of things are in there, because even in those hardcore liberal states, you're going to be surprised at what you find. So anyway, that's State Constitution Saturday, and I thought it was only fitting to talk about God on Sundays. And so we are exploring God in the constitutions on Sunday. That is the theme for Sunday's post this year throughout 2026. So take a look at that. We started with Saturday, January 4th, was God in the U.S. Constitution. So where does God or the Creator or those terms show up in the U.S. Constitution? And then I started with Alabama. We're just going alphabetically because it's easier for me to keep track. So I started with Alabama this last Sunday. And this coming Sunday will be Alaska, and then so on and so on. So I am literally going through with a fine-tooth comb every single state constitution to find where the terms Creator, Supreme Being, the Almighty, Lord, God, all of those types of terms that they use to reference God, where are those in the state constitution? And if you are new to this channel and you're screaming in your head, oh, but there's separation of church and state, those words literally don't appear in any of the state constitutions, nor in the U.S. Constitution. So you better take a look at the language of the actual constitutions about that. I've also done videos about that, so make sure to take a look at those particular videos, the shorter videos specifically on that topic. So check that out if you have any questions, or especially if you're new to this channel and never heard that I've done that topic or videos on that topic, and your instinct is to say, but we've always talked about, you always hear it in the media, and in court cases about separation of church and state. Please take a look at that video, because I went in more depth about that in a way that I'm not going to do right now. So that covers all the different types of topics that we're going to be covering in posts Tuesday through Sunday. And then my goal is to get the newsletters out every Monday. So last year I was doing them once a month because, let's be frank, I was recovering from the 3 major surgeries that I had in August, September, and November of 2024, and then daily treatments that ran through the end of the year until my deductible reset and I could no longer afford to do anything, including PT. So anyway, I did a lot of healing in 2025 and just tried to ease my way back into the freedom work. So anyway, I was only doing because I wasn't doing as many videos and I wasn't doing as many posts, I figured, what is the point in doing a newsletter more than basically once a month, because there's not going to be a whole lot in it. So at any rate, I will be, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, it will recap all those weekly posts that I just talked about, the Tuesday midweek merch, the Wednesday wellness post, the Thursday throwback for the U.S. Supreme Court cases, the Friday freedom fighting tools, the Saturday state constitution links, and the Sunday God and the Constitution elements. Amongst any other posts that I find throughout the week, any other legal updates or things of that nature, any other of the short videos, there'll be links, of course, to any videos that I do in that newsletter. So with all that being said, you could sign up for the newsletter right on the website. There's, I think, a little button somewhere at the bottom, the footer of any page of our website. So check that out. I'll hopefully be sending those out Sundays or Mondays of every single week. I will say I didn't check this morning, but as of late evening yesterday, it was still spooling the email that I sent out on Sunday, mid-afternoon. So I'm not quite sure why it's all of a sudden taking so long. More tech issues when you're trying to share the word of the Constitution and fighting for freedom, I guess. But so if you haven't gotten yours yet, it might still be spooling. At any rate, with all that being said, before I turn on the phone number on the screen, I'm going to scroll back up to see what questions we have. Okay. Okay, Second Amendment. Does New York, Letitia James, have jurisdiction over a gun parts distribution company in Florida? Guns and Gadgets did a show on it today. Interesting. Okay, so does she have jurisdiction over a gun parts distribution company? Okay, so first of all, let's just address the issue of jurisdiction. Regardless of subject matter, let's address the issue of jurisdiction, what would be more along the lines of personal jurisdiction. So in general, you have to either physically be present in or living in or conducting business in a state in order for that state to exercise jurisdiction over you. So, for example, if we're talking about New York, I currently live in Florida. So the question is about a gun part distribution company in Florida. So if I'm not a gun part distributor, but let's assume that I manufactured gun parts, and I manufacture them here in Florida, and I live here in Florida, and I don't physically even go to New York, but I have customers that are purchasing those parts, and I'm shipping them to New York. How does that work? Does the New York state, do their laws, do their state officials have any authority over me just for the sale of those parts? You know, that's a good question. So I'm not answering that in terms of the, let me back up and say, when I'm saying I don't know and I'm thinking this through, I'm not talking about what laws are currently on the books, because I guarantee you the answer is almost always yes. You could find some law to stretch and say that you can exercise jurisdiction over somebody for almost any reason, because government is power hungry and they'll always claim they have jurisdiction over somebody. What I'm talking about is constitutionally speaking, regardless of whatever bullshit laws might be on the books, what actually would be constitutional. And I really don't know. I don't have a clear answer in my head about that. If I were going to New York, if I was physically going to New York and I was selling those, those gun parts in New York, then yes, they would have jurisdiction over me. If I had my manufacturing plant there, they would have jurisdiction over me, over my business, right? Over the business. If I had my distribution warehouse there, they would have jurisdiction over me because I'm conducting the business there. If I am literally if my manufacturing, my production, my packaging, my shipping, all of it, distribution centers, everything is here in Florida, and I'm, having USPS or FedEx deliver all my packages for me, I really don't think that they could say they can exercise any kind of personal jurisdiction over that company. I don't think that's there. Now, subject matter jurisdiction, that's a different story. So, subject matter jurisdiction, the question of Second Amendment stuff. Here's the thing, and the person who asked the question, I do believe, has been a commenter on several videos before. So, you're probably not so new to me that this would be new to you. But those of you who are new to this channel, this is something, that you'll pick up on from me. That again, I don't care what, to a certain degree, I don't care what the U.S. Supreme Court has said about the Second Amendment or any other amendment. I don't care what a governor has said or the president has said. I don't care what Congress or any state legislatures have said, or even local legislatures like your city councils, city commissions, whatever that you have in your community. What matters is the language of the Constitution itself. And none of those things, places, people, organizations that I just mentioned have any right to abrogate, diminish, or impair the rights that are given to us by God and preserved and protected within the framework of the U.S. Constitution. And so the Second Amendment, you should all have this memorized, right? Because it's very short. I think it's the shortest of the amendments. But at any rate, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So what does that really mean? I would say that, and I have said, that virtually any laws restricting the ability to keep and bear arms is unconstitutional. So, for example, there are laws that I want to talk to, there are bills, proposed laws that are bills in the Florida State Legislature right now that I want to talk to my dear friend, 2AEDU, about his thoughts and his take on some of these things, where there's bills being proposed or that have been introduced in the Florida legislature this session about transportation of firearms, or about, which is an issue we have talked about in the context of Michigan's laws, but it's a different state because there's a lot of different stuff going on there. Transportation, there was something else. There are bills proposed, or bills that have been introduced, I should say, in the Florida State Legislature this session, where they want to require you to have background checks just to purchase ammunition. Not a firearm, just the ammunition. There's a few bills actually that cover that topic in the Florida Legislature this session. And there's some other ones that I don't remember off the top of my head. I spent the first couple hours this morning combing through, I would guess 500 bills so far this morning. I did not even get through all of them that have been introduced at this point, but I've made a dent. I think there were 37 pages listed of all these bills, at least on the website I was on, and I've gotten through the first 5 pages. It's a lot. There's a lot. So, with that being said, if there's not something that's inherently dangerous, then there can be no law, constitutionally speaking, to stop you from doing it. Let's just focus on the Second Amendment context. So, for example, are laws constitutional about brandishing? Now, brandishing is where you are actually pulling out your firearm in some sort of threatening manner, or a manner of, I am getting ready to use this firearm. That is what brandishing is. Not just merely having it seen, but, hey, I'm here, I'm armed, I'm ready to use my firearm. I can understand laws related to brandishing firearms, because that's a threat. And you're not allowed to threaten, you're not allowed to assault anyone, and you're not allowed to threaten the assault of anyone. So that makes sense to me. Of course, it has to be narrowly tailored, and it has to be, very specific and all the rest. Because clearly just having an open firearm is not brandishing and it's not threatening. If you see somebody having a firearm holstered on, their side, and they're just walking around and they're eating a cheeseburger, and you think that's threatening, then you have mental health issues. That's not a threat. So, so as far as that goes, that makes sense to me. But as far as a background check to buy a firearm, I don't know. I don't think that's accurate. I guess I could see it the other way around. If you have somebody, and I'm not 100% solid on this. So, freedom fighting fans of mine, don't shoot me just yet about this point of view. But what I'm thinking is, if you have somebody that's been convicted of violent offenses, that would necessitate them being limited in access to firearms, I could see some sort of, I'll say, reverse database. Like if you go to a store. I was at Lowe's the other day at the customer service counter, and they had this binder of people with a list: do not accept returns from these people. And it's because there's some sort of specific reason why that person, they have scammed the store or whatever, right? If you had some kind of list like that, a database of people where, if you think about it like sex offenders, with a sex offender registry, if you apply to go work at a daycare center, although there are actually background checks that look at a whole bunch of stuff, but I could see the use of a check just to see if you're on a list for a sex offender registry, because if you are, you do not belong working at a daycare center. So I could see that if you are somebody that has been known to, convicted, gone through the whole court process and everything, that you have violently, you've been violent in the past, then there's reason to believe that you need to not be able, you need to have a limited array of weapons at your disposal. Again, I'm not 100% solid on this, and I'm all open for discussion on this topic, but I could see the point to that. Other than somebody who has been criminally acknowledged to to be known to be violent towards others, like a domestic abuse situation where somebody has gotten protection order after protection order after protection order, legit orders that have been violated. There's documentation of, being all beat to hell, being, stalked, being whatever, run off the road, whatever the case is. Somebody who is, I've been reading a lot of death penalty appeal cases that are coming through the Florida State Supreme Court, because the governor's been signing a lot of death warrants. And these are cases, a lot of the cases are from the 80s, maybe in the 90s, but I mean, they've gone through 40 years of appeals. And, but I'm reading the facts of the case, and I'm like, yes, a lot of these cases, this is somebody who it was one after another, after another, after another. That is a person that should have had their access limited to firearms. I could get where that person should be on some sort of list, and as long as your name is not on that list, you shouldn't have to go through any other checks other than, what is your name? Is your name on the list? Nope, your name's not on the list. Okay. But not recording anything. Your name does not get written down on a piece of paper. Your name does not get sent to any kind of governmental agency. All they are doing is looking at the list to see if your name is on it. And if your name is not on it, you can buy your firearms, you can buy your ammunition, you can buy whatever. So that's kind of my take on it. But anyway, I have a lot I could say. We could do a whole show. We could do a month series on the Second Amendment alone. But anyway, your question about does she have jurisdiction over a gun parts distribution company in Florida if she's the Attorney General in New York? again, you have a personal jurisdiction issue depending on the situation, and you have a subject matter jurisdiction issue. So, can she issue an arrest warrant? Again, if it depends. So, we kind of talked about subject matter jurisdiction and we talked about personal jurisdiction. If, as a gun parts distributor, you somehow, I mean, I suppose it's possible that you somehow commit a legitimate legal offense, right? You commit a crime that's a legitimate crime to be on the books. In which case, then yes, she should be able to issue an arrest warrant. But just being based out of a different state doesn't make you immune to prosecution, of course, right? But again, the personal jurisdiction would have to be there, and the subject matter jurisdiction. It has to be a legit law on the books, first of all. So anyway, hopefully I answered you sufficiently on that. I'm not sure about guns and gadgets and their take on it, but that is mine. Mike, I hope you saw the comment at 12:17 from Barry that I need massages and genuine care and kindness. Did you see that comment? That is a very accurate statement. So, all right. Okay. Georgia Transparency, hello. I don't recall seeing your handle in the chat before, but yes, I would love to connect with you as well. Welcome to the show. Yeah, I haven't seen Lori today. I don't know how she's doing. Actually, guys, if any of you, especially those of you in Michigan, I've never done this before. Hopefully she won't be mad at me. But if those of you in Michigan who personally know Lori can reach out to her and see if she's okay, I would really appreciate it, because I've tried to reach out to her twice since our last show. I tried to call her the week of Christmas and see how she's doing, see how Christmas is going, things with the family, that kind of thing. And I've never heard back from her. Never a text, an email, not a call back. I mean, this is a woman who on and off was living in my house during parts of our fight with the Restore Freedom petition and all that. I mean, we were extremely close at one point, and we've never had a falling out. So I'm just concerned for her. So if you guys do know her personally and you can reach out, if you live anywhere in that mid-Michigan area, please check on her and let me know what you find out. Okay, so First Amendment question. Henry, by the way, love your name. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness associated with the right of locomotion. Registration of private automobile mandatory. Do we the people have as a matter of right to use? I feel like there might be some words missing in there, but I think I get your general question, and I've answered this several times in the last several shows, although I don't recall you being necessarily in those chats. So because you're probably new to the channel, or at least new to this conversation about vehicle registration and all that, what I will say is that take a look at, you know what, and I normally try to record the kinds of things that we talk about. So sorry guys, I'm gonna make myself a note, because when the show is done, I changed the description to match some of the topics that we talked about. And anyway, I don't remember. I think this is only the second question. I hope. I don't know. I have no idea what we were talking about. Okay, so yeah, so then you're asking about automobile registrations. So I want you to take a look at some of the shows, the descriptions for the shows that we did October, November, December, the last 5 or 6 shows of the year last year, because I went into a whole lot of detail on that specific one, and you should be able to find in the description which show it was and narrow it down that way. So you don't have to go back and watch all the shows. With that being said, knowing that there is a much fuller description from a recent show, as well as I've talked about this many times, what I'm going to do is just kind of give you a very, hopefully, brief explanation. And that is, I do not believe any vehicle registration should be mandatory at all. What I have explained in the past is I see a benefit to voluntary registration. For example, an easier way to prove your ownership in the event that somebody has attempted to steal your vehicle or whatever the case may be. I think there is a benefit to a volunteer vehicle registration system. I do not believe that you should have to register your vehicle with the government. I don't believe that you should have to pay vehicle ongoing, yearly vehicle registration fees. Even if we could say, even if someone were to convince me that vehicle registration is a legit thing, that there would be a legit government interest behind it, I absolutely do not believe that you should have to pay every year to keep your vehicle registered. Once you have registered it, it stays registered. End of story. There's no continuing paperwork that they need to do. So if there's no continuing work that is required regarding that, there is no justification for charging you a single cent when it comes to renewing your registration. You shouldn't have to renew it. I think the same thing goes for driver's licenses. Quite frankly, just having a driver's license, we all know, does not make you a safe driver. We all know that there are a lot of drivers on the road that don't have a valid driver's license. So not having a required driver's license does not mean that you're not going to be out there driving. I have served as a public defender in 2 different states, and I can tell you that I had a lot of cases where people were driving on a suspended license or driving on no valid license at all. And sometimes, it was just stupidity. Sometimes it was entitlement. These little millennial teeny boppers who think the rules don't apply to them, and they could have easily gotten their license back. They had it taken away for a legitimate reason. And they just didn't bother to do that because they're just not responsible human beings. I didn't really feel sorry for them. I defended them. I defended them the same that I would defend any other person, but I didn't feel bad for them. However, oftentimes there's a situation where, it was due to some administrative issue, and, not that somebody was some serious risk to people on the roads, and it was now a matter of costs, and they didn't have, lots of money to pay all these increased costs for, taking courses or paying fines and fees and things like that with the Secretary of State and with the court, just to be able to get their license reinstated. Because not only that, but when that happens, typically your insurance rates also go up. So then they have to have a big sum of money just to be able to have for that insurance. And if they had a vehicle impounded or, for whatever reason, they had it towed or something like that, there's just a massive amount of ways that money can be swallowed up, and you have people that are struggling to get by. Maybe it's a single mom, maybe it's some veteran who just has a lot of medical appointments, and he just simply can't afford to keep up with all those kinds of bills, and he can't get his license back, and he's only driving to his medical appointments. Or the single mom is only going to work and daycare or her kids' school and her kids' doctor's appointments. She doesn't even have time for fun things. She's not going out drinking. She's not being a danger on the roads to anybody. Again, I've seen it all. I've seen the people that should not be on the roads that are charged with driving on a suspended license. I've seen the people that are totally fine to be on the roads and they're driving on a suspended license, and everything in between. And my point with all that is just that, just because you have a license doesn't make you safe, and just because you don't have a license does not mean you're not safe to be on the roads. So I'm not really sure why we feel the need to license everything. Get a permit, get a license, get a registration, do all this stuff ahead of time, because that doesn't mean you're good to go. I mean, in the real world, realistically, logistically, that doesn't mean that you're safe or good or appropriate just because you have that registration, you have that permit, you have whatever. In theory, it is a good idea on paper to require licenses for everything and permits and registrations and all the things. In theory, not in practicality, not even close. So I don't think you should have to have a driver's license. I don't think you should have to have Now, I will say, I could probably be convinced that you should have a special license for commercial types of vehicles, heavy equipment, a heavy equipment operator, semi driver, um, whatever. I can't think of all kinds of special equipment, but any kind of heavy duty special equipment. And I think that it's just, um, and I would dare say, perhaps even with motorhomes, because I've seen some crazy things. And I've driven we don't have a motorhome anymore. We haven't in about 10 years or so. But when we used to have a motorhome, I had to drive it at times. Mike didn't always drive it. And that thing, you got to be more attentive than normal with driving, because you have what, a 34 long foot, um, a 34-foot long vehicle. It's, wider than most vehicles. It's certainly taller than most vehicles. It's just a behemoth. And you could easily take somebody out without realizing it. You could easily cause property damage, sometimes without even realizing it. So I could see the argument for any kind of specialty equipment beyond a typical daily driving vehicle, that a license for that, an education for that. It's really coming down to the education, not so much the license, but the training needed for that. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does. I was trying to keep the answer pretty short, but still kind of address what it is. If you have any follow-up questions or specific aspects you want me to address that I did not, please let me know. Okay. So, somebody says, my mom shipped a gun to my brother in another state, called the contents machined parts, no problem. I don't think we should have to play games with it, though. That's the thing. I don't think we should have to play word games to have something that we are constitutionally protected to be able to have. I think that's total garbage. Yes, and of course, one of my favorites are a regular call-in, somebody who fights for freedom in their local government on a regular basis, Jay Curvitt. She says, I'm now introducing my counsel to learn the Pennsylvania Constitution. And I think that's fabulous. We do need to do that. Okay. Yes, let's see. Hello to Rogue Nation. Okay, so my question is jurisdiction, Second Amendment. Jurisdiction. I can't remember what I think I answered your question though. So let me know if I didn't. Reiterate the legislation to a better way, the way of the Fifth. I have to admit, I don't know what you're talking about there. I see, I'm kind of dumb about the YouTube stuff. I think it's called a super chat. Sorry, my bad. I don't know, but I think that's what it's called. I see it there. I just don't know enough of I've never even heard of what you're talking about to have it align with, and specifically what legislation you're talking about. You want to rewrite or reiterate legislation. I'm more than happy to follow up on that if you gave me a little bit more for me to do that with. Okay, so, oh, also, I did not say this. Oh, it just jumped on me. Crap. Okay, I have to scroll back up to where I was. I did not say this. Normally, Lori types it in. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm just going to do this now so you guys can see it in the chat. Okay, I just put an example in the chat of what a question format looks like in the chat. So, because I realized that so far nobody has done that, and it's my fault because I did not remind those of you who knew before, and I certainly did not inform you to those of you who are new to the channel. But if you put the word question in all caps, and then put the actual question, the text of the question in normal uppercase, lowercase, that would be phenomenal because it helps me see the word question in all caps, and then I can read it from there. I have had people that put the whole question in capital letters, and it is extremely hard to read a whole question in capital letters. So please don't do that to me. But putting the word question in all caps helps me to see it, and then I'm not skipping. I don't skip anything. If it looks like it's a question for me, I'm not intentionally skipping anything. Oftentimes you guys have conversation back and forth, so I end up accidentally missing stuff. That way, if it's buried in those conversations, or if it looks like it was just conversation with each other. So, okay. So I scrolled back up. Okay. Guns are federally controlled, and they should not be. Okay. I don't see questions so far. Oh my gosh. This was not a question to me, but I just have to comment. DJ Plus 2 says California is banning gasoline mowers and gardening equipment from entering the state, and distributors are not allowed to ship there. I think that is total BS. That is insane. I'd love to hear the constitutional justification for such a thing. So, okay. And somebody, again, not a question to me, but just comments that SCOTUS uses text, history, and tradition for eyeglasses these days. And I don't know if this is the way you mean that, but in the Bruin case, I think it was New York Rifle v. Bruin, I can't remember now because it's been a few years, since that case came out in June, I think, of 2022 or 2023. At any rate, when that case came out, they made it overly complicated. They came to almost the right result, but the way they got there was not good enough. And what they used is the text, the history, and tradition of the Constitution, and what laws were doing, what kind of laws were on the books when we enacted this piece of the Constitution that they were interpreting. And I kind of get where they're going with that, but let's just look simplistically. Let's just look at the language of the Constitution itself. What does it allow for? Does it allow for our right to keep and bear firearms to be infringed? No. Period. End of story. Let's cut the bullshit. It doesn't need any more than that. I really don't care how long somebody has been violating the Constitution, or shall I say, I don't care how long a government entity or office holder has been violating the Constitution. They could be doing it for a century or more. I don't care. That doesn't give them the right to continue to violate our God-given liberties. With that being said, okay. What? Okay, so there was just some follow-up that there was a guy who was apparently a firearms manufacturer, parts manufacturer, who is facing 500 years in prison because the New York AG is coming after him for, I don't know what the actual offense was. And there was a Florida sheriff holding him for extradition to New York right now. Man, I know a lot of Florida sheriffs that actually wouldn't hold him for extradition for something like that. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was my own Volusia County Sheriff, Mike Chitwood, because he does not know how to spell Constitution, let alone enforce it. Okay, so sorry guys, I am just trying to double check that I didn't miss any questions. Question, has SCOTUS addressed your case in the order list, accepted, denied, or relist? That was a question. Okay, so for any of you who do not know, I have been battling the city of Ormond Beach. They instituted an action against me. I did not sue them. They brought action against me. That's civil. And it's about permits. The only thing the magistrate found us guilty of was not having permits for our fence, our privacy fence, our parking pavers that extend the space of our driveway, and our shipping containers that are entirely contained on our property and in our backyard, and really not that noticeable to somebody even standing on the sidewalk right in front of them. So with all that being said, we fought it in the magistrate court itself. We fought there, and he totally ignored every constitutional argument, literally ignored them. He just said, that's without merit. Did not say why. Did not say why they're not allowed to follow the Constitution at the magistrate level. And then the city violated countless court procedures, court rules, state statutes, the city's own ordinances, the Constitution, you name it. I fought it to my first round of guaranteed appeals to the circuit court. Circuit court handed me a partial win because the city is now no longer able to physically come on my property and tear all that up. But she allowed them to fine me indefinitely, which then would lead to a lien on my house and levies to take all of our cars, personal assets, you name it. An indefinite fine. Could be $1 billion by the time it's all said and done. So I fought that with a petition for writ of certiorari to the Florida Court of Appeals, who strung me along for a year and a half and then summarily dismissed it without giving even one sentence as to why. They denied my petition for rehearing and a motion for a written opinion. Without that motion for written opinion, they Florida is the only state that this could happen in, literally the only state. But without the Court of Appeals issuing a written opinion as to why they were denying taking the case, the Florida State Supreme Court no longer had jurisdiction. Literally could not take the case even if they wanted to. And with that happening, the only option I had was to bring it to the United States Supreme Court, which of course limited my issues severely because it was no longer about all the state statutes. I mean, to a certain degree, it was about the state statutes that the city was violating. But really, it was about the U.S. constitutional provisions that the city was violating. So state constitutional provisions, state statutes, you name it, all that stuff took a seat on the back burner, basically, or had to be totally forgotten about and, just set aside. So I ended up narrowing down the issues to 4, which is actually quite it's a lot. A lot of cases that are brought are only have 1 issue, some have 2. The most I actually found anywhere was 3. Going back a few years, I looked at a few hundred cases, and the most I saw was 3. But I brought 4. And they varied in things from equal protection to due process to the 8th Amendment. One thing I said is, one of the arguments I made is, where there is no harm, there cannot be an indefinite fine. If you have no harm, how can you give someone a fine if there literally is no harm, even asserted, even alleged? How can you fine someone? So, anyway, we just found out yesterday. I haven't even had the emotional wherewithal to open the email, but I saw in my drop down on my phone, I just saw the little snippet you get on your notification drop downs. I saw the drop down that just said petition denied. Does not mean they disagree with me. Does not mean they don't think it has merit or value or any of that stuff. They take less than 1% of cases like that. And it's not a direct appeal coming from a federal court of appeals. It was on a petition for writ of certiorari, and I think it was unique in many respects, but procedurally it was unique because I followed all the correct procedures all the way up in a way that no one has done before. At least anyone for this particular state statute in Florida. The statute that the fines are being assessed under, 162.09, at least in the last 20 years, not a single person has made it all the way to the Court of Appeals or Florida Supreme Court going through all the proper procedures. So I thought this was a perfect vehicle, this case was a perfect vehicle to address these issues. But unfortunately, they did not take the case. So I'm actually extremely upset about it. I don't know where we're going to go next. We do have we do have some stuff that's still pending in the circuit court. So we're going to see that through. I don't know, depending on how that goes, I don't know if I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if that doesn't go well and they try to do other stuff, then we're going to probably try to file some sort of lawsuit in federal district court against them. But typically those kinds of cases don't go well because the best way procedurally to handle that is really through the way that I brought it. So no higher court told me I was wrong. They just wouldn't take the case. So anyway, so that's where that stands. And it's really disturbing to me. We fought so hard, but it is what it is. Okay. All right. I am looking for question. Okay. So there is a question. Can a victim in a criminal case demand a jury trial against the defendant because they don't like the plea deal against the defendant? The answer is no. A victim in a criminal case almost has no rights whatsoever. There is very little that protects victim rights in a criminal matter. Very, very little. And typically speaking, it's generally almost always about sentencing, that you have a right to have a victim impact statement. Now, I will say, in Florida, the court rules, I don't know that this made it to statute, but court rules, and I can't remember which rule it is, it's 3.8 something. But when we were victims of a criminal act, a violent act, perpetrated by one of our neighbors who, I don't know, was under some sort of mental delusion. I thought maybe she was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. She claims she was not. At any rate, came over to our house with a sledgehammer and then proceeded to do a bunch of crazy crap while she was here. She had been held actually since November of 2024. She had been held by the Department for Mental Health Assessment. She had been deemed incompetent to stand trial, I think, since early December 2024. And so she had been recently found to be competent to stand trial, but her attorney then filed a motion to reduce or set aside bond so she could get out while she was pending trial. So, of course, I'm an attorney. They don't know I'm an attorney. Her attorney doesn't still know that I'm an attorney unless he's now researched me. And given how I handled myself in court, he probably got an inkling that I was an attorney, but I didn't say I was. The prosecutor's office, they've been told that I'm an attorney, but quite frankly, I don't think they give a crap a whole lot about these cases. But at any rate, so the prosecutor's office did not tell us that these motions were pending, that there was this hearing coming up, none of that. We are looking. Mike is regularly looking at that case. He saw it on the docket, printed it off, showed it to me, and I was like, yep, this is a thing. So I read through the whole motion, looked up the court rule. Sure enough, there was a court rule that specifically allowed, if the defendant makes a motion to modify their bond during the pendency of the court case, then the victims have the right to speak on that at that hearing. So, of course, I told the judge I was there to speak on that particular motion. I couldn't speak on anything else happening that day, but I did have a right to speak on the motion for reducing her bond. So I was able to get up there, though, and essentially say exactly what happened in the whole case. How she came over to our house, how this had actually been the second time that she'd been doing crazy things. There were 3 instances total where she was at our house uninvited and did not leave initially until things were highly inappropriate, if not dangerous. And so I spoke to all of those issues. Her attorney, like a dumbass, asked me questions that he did not know the answer to, which then just allowed me to open the door and go ahead and share more information. He thought, for example, I'll just tell you guys, you might find this funny. He thought it would be a smart idea to ask me, because I alluded to the fact that there was something in the police report that was incorrect. And he said, "Are you telling me the police report is incorrect? Did you just say the police report is incorrect?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely, I said that. Because the police report only says she brought over a hammer. A hammer would be small, you can hold it in one hand just fine, and anybody can carry it around." I said, "That's not what she had. She actually had a sledgehammer, a much larger and more dangerous weapon that she was yielding as she was at my house and swinging it around at my son and our property." So then, of course, the attorney did not learn his lesson, and he continued to ask me a few follow-up questions. But he, the look on his face, though, was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have asked that question." "No shit, Sherlock, you probably shouldn't have asked me that question." But he thought he was going to be able to somehow create this on the record that the victim is testifying to the fact that the police got the facts wrong. Yeah, I guess that's what we got on the record, but that's not the end result that's going to be taken from it. So, anyway, I'm sorry. The question was about if a victim in a criminal case has the right to demand a jury trial if a defendant is skipping the trial aspect and they're just taking a plea deal. So that's one thing that I will say that I much prefer about restorative justice. Now, there's a lot of you who, if you know anything about restorative justice, if you've even heard the term, a lot of you will just say, like Moms for Liberty, fights against it. "Oh, it's just one of those social justice things that's all like, it's like DEI and it's all these other social justice things and it's crap and it's part of the woke agenda." I don't really care where it came from. I can tell you that it works. And I am specifically trained as a restorative justice facilitator, restorative practitioner, all the different terms that you want to call it. I'm trained and experienced in that work. I did it in the criminal justice system and in the school system. And one of the best things about it is that it gives a voice to the victim, because the victim does not get a voice in the criminal justice system, period. It is just, it's so minimal, it's dismissed, it's basically irrelevant. So anyway, that's that. Shoot, and I see there are some more questions. My screen scrolls on me and it jumped around, and I apologize. I'm trying to find where I just was so I don't skip any questions. Okay, so found that question. So, restore freedom, this is my question. Yep, that was me. I saw my own thing. Okay, why do legislators not understand that shall means must, especially when they speak about the Second Amendment? That is not a question that I can really answer, because there's no answer to that, right? They do understand the word shall means must, that you must not, that you shall not. They don't give a crap. A lot of them have never read the Constitution front and back even once, let alone studied it, to know it, to remember it. They don't refresh themselves on it. And they don't stop to use logical thinking about it. And if they disagree with an element of the Constitution, they don't stop themselves and go, "You know what? I disagree with this, but it is what's in the Constitution." There are parts of the Constitution, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there are elements of the Constitution that I disagree with. But it is the Constitution, it's what we have. So unless we change it, that's what we have, and we must follow it. And certainly if you are in government, you take an oath of office to defend first and foremost the U.S. Constitution. And if you are serving in a state or local role, then you are also taking an oath to defend the state constitution of the jurisdiction in which you are taking that oath of office. So we need to keep that in mind. But there's no logical reason why they would not follow the wording of shall. Okay, friend was held. Question, friend was held 14 days past probation hold. Chris, I don't really know what you mean by that. I assume we're still, I don't know. I don't know what your question is about that. If you want to explore that a little bit more, give me some more, description on that. I would love to follow up on that. And it looks like that might be the one and only Lori D3 says, sorry, life has been rough, but I made it. So I'm excited to see that Lori has joined us and that she's alive. We at least have confirmation that she's alive, and I know it's her and not an imposter because I just saw her do the reminder that if you have questions for me, please put them in the format of question in all caps and then put this is my question or whatever your question is in normal capitalization. Okay, so then I have a question. In my opinion, why, in my opinion, is trespassing from public without an actual crime a big thing now? Trespassing from public. So I assume what you're getting at is these days you hear a lot about people being charged with criminal trespass from a public place without there being some other underlying crime. That's what they're charged with, is trespassing. And you're asking, why is that such a big thing now? I don't really know. It's a good question. Why is it such a big thing? And for those of you who don't know, I myself am a victim of that abuse of process and malicious prosecution. It took me 2 years to get the criminal trespassing charges dismissed against me that were brought illegally and unconstitutionally, stemming from an incident on Election Day, November 3rd, 2020, when I not only was there because of a First Amendment issue, but I showed up to a polling precinct as the attorney for someone else whose rights were being violated by government officials. And I was brought there by the sheriff's deputies who arrested me. I went there to specifically talk to him. I talked to him on the phone and said, you know what, we seem to be at an impasse. Why don't I bring the laws, I'll print them out. We'll be able to have a better conversation and discussion about this in person, and we'll just handle it from there. And he said, yep, okay, I'll be here. And then proceeded to not talk to me and instead arrest me violently when I got there. So at any rate, what was I arrested with? Trespassing, criminal trespass on public property that was open to the general public during the times that I was there and for the purposes that I was there. So why is it being used as a tool against people right now? And I don't know, because it's being used improperly, but it seems like it's one of those things that they feel like they're able to fool the general public with it a bit more. If the general consensus among uninformed people is the government sets the rules, the government, you have to follow what the government says, and the government essentially dictates to us how we can function in our daily lives. And if the government says, no, you cannot do anything, then it doesn't matter how they say it, when they say it, or whatever, or who in the government says it, you have to follow that. So it could be there's a law on the books. It could be there's a court case that says something. It could be a local ordinance. It could be that it's just a government official saying something verbally without there actually being anything in writing to back it up. In the case of my friend, this is a public service, and his YouTube channel, he's got lots of videos on this topic, but it could be the case of a sign, not even an enacted ordinance, statute, whatever, literally a sign that is posted that who knows who put up on a wall in a government area that you could be charged with trespassing. So I don't think any of that is legit. Besides, the underlying thing is, can you be, in general, at all, can you be criminally responsible for trespass when you are on a property open to the general public? The answer is no. That was decided very clearly in the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1960s. And maybe there might have even been a case in the 1950s that also referenced that. I used to have those case citations memorized right off the top of my head. It was two cases out of either Alabama and Louisiana. I can't remember now. But they are in my briefs that are on the website. If you go to restorefreedomkh.com, you can see the resources tab, go to case documents, and the Allegan case. The Allegan case is on there. All of those briefs mention that. Anything to do with subject matter jurisdiction, those briefs, that'll explain those court cases very clearly, that you cannot be held criminally responsible for trespassing on public property. You actually can't even be trespassed on property. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. You cannot be held criminally responsible for trespassing on privately owned property that is open to the general public, because it's really, it boils down to an equal protection argument. That's what the whole argument behind it is. If you have done something inappropriate, if you are stopping the normal conduct of business, if you're stopping, let's say somebody there is protesting something. I don't care what they're protesting, but I go in as a citizen, either to a government office or to a general business. If I walk in, I'm trying to walk in and they're blocking me as a customer to get in, or they are causing such a disturbance, they're chanting so loud with whatever it is that they're there to fight for, that I cannot hear the person at the counter who is trying to help me. I cannot get my transaction transacted because they're being so loud and disruptive, or they have some sort of, air horns or whatever the thing is, right? If it's literally stopping the normal course of business from being transacted in a reasonable fashion, then you have that by itself, yes, that could be a criminal offense. But if you are just physically present, hey, just here. I'm not taking up an inordinate amount of space. I'm just present. I might be recording. Doesn't matter. I could be having normal conversation with other people there. Doesn't matter. If I am not interrupting the normal course of business, I cannot be criminally responsible for trespassing alone, regardless of whether it's privately owned or government owned. So at any rate, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, there's a question. Buckeye Baptist. I have a small farm. Do I have a right to sell eggs, butter, etc. to the public without government interference, such as paying taxes on income from this? Okay, so I thought you were about to ask in terms of licensing. Shoot, you guys have asked a lot of questions and I have no idea the subjects. How am I gonna accurately update the description of this video? Shoot, 2A, that was one of the questions we talked about. I normally do a much better job at this. Crap, I can't remember the other questions you guys have had. Okay, so I thought your question was going to be in terms of government interference, which would be, licensing or anything like that. In terms of paying taxes, though, that is a different story. It's a different question. And I don't think it's interference. It's an after the fact thing. It's not a before the fact thing. Okay? So you paying taxes, and there's a reason why words are big, right? Words matter. So I'm not saying that I 100% agree with all taxes. That's not at all what I'm saying. But taxes are just a different subject matter than in the act interfering with that act from transacting. So paying taxes, here's my take on this, okay? We've talked about this before, so to those of you who've heard me say this, I apologize to the extent that I'm repeating this, but it is probably worth repeating anyway, the whole concept that in order for a country or any kind of governmental entity to function, for a society to function, okay, in order for there to be any kind of organization to function, there has to be some sort of revenue generation happening to maintain whatever it needs. Now, I think those of you who know anything about me know that I'm very much more freedom, less government. Less government, less government, less government. And I have said such bold things as the amount of government we have needs to be reduced. In order to be truly constitutional, it needs to be reduced by about 90, 95%. I mean, I don't remember the exact numbers I've used before, but it's at least 90%. And I hold to that. I think that's the case with most local governments, state government, county government, certainly national government. That the amount of government, the amount of employees, the amount of laws and rules and regulations on the books, the amount of restrictions upon the people, the amount of things that are taxed and that there's fees and other kinds of financial burdens for, all of that should be reduced by about 90%. The amount of functions that a government is doing the only way a government should be doing any kind of functions is if it is a function that is specifically allotted for and allowed by the Constitution. If it's a federal government function, then it should be, it must be allowed by the US Constitution and not prohibited by it. If it is a state or local government, then that function, that government function, not only has to be not prohibited by the US Constitution, but it must be specifically allowed by the state constitution. And if it's a local government, if it's not specifically allowed by the state constitution, as long as it's not prohibited by the US Constitution or prohibited by the state constitution, it must then be specifically allowed by the local constitution, which is typically called your city charter, township charter, something like that. So if it's not specifically allotted for in one of those mechanisms, then the government has no right to be doing it. Well, the government has no rights at all, but the government has no authority to be doing it. And if they have no authority to be doing it, then you don't need to raise funds for that function. Simple as that. So what are some of the things that, for those of you who are just completely anti-tax, we should have no tax whatsoever. Here's some of the things that are legitimate government functions. We need to have proper infrastructure. So for example, people in this very episode have been asking about the right to locomotion or transportation. And I think there is that right to transportation. Now, by and large, you have railroads that are privately funded, privately operated, etc. But roadways are largely governmentally operated, right? You have interstates, you have highways, you have freeways, you have main artery roads. And then even within your own communities, then you have locally run, just city roads, township, whatever. And that's whether they're gravel, they're asphalt, they're concrete, whatever. They're made with brick pavers. They are kept up and operated by a government entity, whether it's state, local, national, county. So that is something that I think is extremely important, is to make sure we have proper infrastructure for transportation. We can physically get our people and our goods to and from other locations all across our great nation. I would even argue, with the way that things are being done these days, that there's perhaps a necessity for information infrastructure to be the responsibility of government, for internet. Not necessarily super high speed, this and that, all the other things. I'm just saying, just having that internet infrastructure, I would say there's a good argument for that being a government function. But the vast majority of things that the government is doing are outside of the scope of what they are constitutionally allowed to do. And therefore, they should not be doing them. Therefore, we should not be, expending government funds to do that. Therefore, we should not be taxing people to pay for all of those government functions, to people work in those roles, etc. So I think that taxation is appropriate for essential government functions. Now, what kinds of taxes? We have taxes on virtually everything. We have sales taxes, we have income taxes, we have, um, um, I can't even think, estate, death taxes, basically. There's all kinds of different taxes. And I think that we need to come up with a system for taxation. I don't think it's really legit to have virtually everything, every kind of, type of existence is taxed in some way. Um, I think that there could be, to the extent that you have to have government involved in some sort of aspect of, now I don't agree in licensing or vehicle registration, but just for the sake of argument, if there is, let's say you're going to do voluntary vehicle registrations. Let's say they do the right thing and they get rid of all mandatory vehicle registrations, okay? And it's only voluntary vehicle registrations. I could see that it would make sense that you pay a small fee. Maybe you pay $100 for that one-time vehicle registration, and there's going to be work transacted by that government employee. So, there's work that needs to be done. If you want to voluntarily participate in that vehicle registration database to protect your ownership interests in that vehicle, then I could see that you'd pay a legitimate fee, let's say $100, whatever it is, because we shouldn't have everybody else paying for that database. We should only have the people that are benefiting from that service paying for that. So hopefully that makes sense, the way that I'm describing it, at least. You might disagree, but hopefully at least makes sense what I'm trying to say about that. So I could see how some point of service types of things should have that fee or that tax, whatever you want to call it. But that's for people that are utilizing those particular services. But by and large, things like roads and fire, police, and I don't even think there should be police. I think it should only be sheriffs. That's a totally different topic for a different day. But the types of things that we are appropriately taxed for, those are things that should be borne by the citizenry at large. And so we need to have some sort of tax mechanism that accounts for those things. But we shouldn't be taxed by this and this and this and this. I mean, I live in Florida. We have no income taxes here. I think that's appropriate to not have any income taxes here. Now, we have very large property taxes here. We also have sales taxes and all the things. So what should it be? Perhaps the way to do it is to say in this state, maybe each state gets to have its own mechanism for taxing, but they should pick one. We are going to tax on the sale of goods. We are going to tax on income. We are going to do real estate taxes. I don't think that one's appropriate. That creates a different constitutional issue. But do you see what I mean? I think that there would be a purpose and a place, but I don't think we should be taxing on all the things at all at the same time. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, you want some more clarification, please let me know. Six Oaks Farm, have you given any thought to filing in the federal district court for your property issue? I spoke of this in our email. Yes, I have thought about that. I'm not sure. I didn't see you in the chat earlier when I talked about it, but I did talk about that later. Basically, the state that it's in right now, I don't mean the state of Florida, but I mean the status that we're at right now, there's a stay, and they're not allowed to do anything. So because they're not allowed to do anything, they're not, at this juncture, they're not allowed to record any liens or levies or take any of our assets. I don't believe that a federal court would think that our any kind of claim would be ripe yet. It wouldn't have ripeness. I wouldn't have standing to bring it on the issue of ripeness because there's nothing that can start happening. If that changes, if that status changes and they are trying to do things to take our assets or take our money or whatever the stuff is, right? That's when I believe the claim would be ripe and I could file something in the federal district court. We would then have the issues that I talked about earlier, where they typically, all the cases that I've seen, and on this very statute, there is a case very recently that had gone up to, it was brought to the federal district court in Michigan or in Florida, and I think it's in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals right now. I don't remember where the state of that case is. But anyway, that case was a very similar thing where the municipality was trying to come after the property owner and implementing actually taking the property or collecting fines, fees, whatever. And so I think, but in those cases, the biggest argument that the municipality has that the courts often go with is this is not the right way to fight these issues. The right way to fight these issues is to fight it as through the initial case. So when you have the initial magistrate order, you have 30 days to file an appeal. And then once you file that notice of appeal and you go through and you file your record on appeal and your transcripts and then your brief on appeal and you do all that, then those issues are litigated at that first round of appeal in the circuit court. And then if you think that was an appropriate or fair or just result based on laws and constitutional provisions, whatever, then you can try to bring it to the Court of Appeals on a petition for writ of certiorari. So it's basically like leave. In Michigan, the analogy would be doing it on leave to appeal, where you don't have that right to appeal, but you're asking for permission to appeal, essentially. So at any rate, it's going through that mechanism. Now, for most of those people, they procedurally screwed it up at the beginning. They didn't know they needed to do certain things. They didn't know they needed transcripts. They didn't know they needed a court reporter at the first round of proceedings, so they might not have transcripts. They didn't know that they needed to raise their legal and constitutional and factual issues all at that initial hearing. They didn't present evidence. They didn't present witnesses. They didn't do any of that stuff at the magistrate level. And so then they might not have, most likely, they didn't know they had 30 days by state law to file that appeal to the circuit court. And even if they did, they didn't know what kinds of issues to raise, that they had to raise all their legal and constitutional issues, but that a lot of those issues had to have been raised at the magistrate level first. Otherwise, they're deemed as having waived those issues. So you have some problems along the way. The difference here is that I did it procedurally correct all along the way. Every procedure I did correctly along the way. It just, they didn't come to the right result. And the last, all the optional courts that could have done something just chose not to take the case. They didn't say I was wrong. They just chose not to take the case. So if I bring a lawsuit in federal district court against the city, it would be different than what all these other cases have been like. But my fear is that mindset that, oh, this is the wrong way to do it because you have that other avenue to do it in, might just be so ingrained in the courts and in the municipalities and their attorneys that fight these issues that they might blend the two types of situations and just deem mine as, nope, this is the wrong venue. You can't succeed here. So there is that. But anyway, it is something I will be looking at if we, if the status of our case changes. So, shoot, somebody just said, I lose hope for something. Oh, shoot. Sorry, guys. I lose hope for this country more and more every day. Blue Line Transparency. Hello to Blue Line Transparency. And I do lose hope a little bit more and more each day as well. Somebody, this was not a question to me, but somebody was clearly commenting to me. I think you need to countersue the city and county for equal or larger amount of the fines. The problem is it is indefinite. They are literally growing every day. I can't possibly sue them for 2 times infinity because it's already infinite. But anyway, I just kind of talked about the procedural aspects of suing. Okay. Yes, and Lori did post at 1:19 if you want to scroll back into the comments. She posted the link to the Allegan County Election Day trespass case. So you can click on that link that's on the website. I was telling you how to navigate to that page through the normal course of the website. I couldn't remember what the short handle URL to that is, but that would have those issues about trespassing on public property, or at least property open to the general public. So, okay. And then she shared that this is a public service channel. Liberty Warrior says, new rule. Anything the government says to do the complete opposite. That's almost what we should do. But I will say, and this is where I still have some hope. There are good legislators out there. There are good governors out there. There are people in government that are trying to implement the right thing. It's just that it's not enough yet to see the mass change that we need to see. But I was really encouraged by some of the bills that I saw being introduced in the Florida State Legislature. Now let's see if they actually get enough support. They get a companion bill in both sides of the legislature, so the House and the Senate. And if they see traction, and if those committee chairs actually do the right thing and allow them to have some airtime and get voted on through the process to get to the next committee, and then finally to the legislature as a whole, we'll see. But without being gutted, I should say, because that happens. Okay. Okay, so DJ Plast was just commenting on the question that somebody else was asking about having their own farm where they are selling eggs, and I don't even remember what else they said. Eggs, dairy products, something milk. I don't remember. And DJ Plast was commenting that food is not taxable. And I don't know what DJ Plast means by that, because in some areas food is not taxable. In some areas food is taxable. And it might depend. So for example, food at a restaurant in Florida is certainly taxable, but some elements of food in Florida is still taxable. I haven't quite figured that out right. But it's not supposed to be. If you're just at the grocery store and you are buying milk and eggs and bread, then it is not taxable. But so if you're selling it on a farm, it should not be taxable either in that scenario. If you have a state that has not exempted the sale of food from taxation, then it is being taxed. So it just depends. I know when I lived in Minnesota, food was not taxable, clothing was not taxable. So, and then I had a rude awakening when I went to New Orleans in Louisiana. We were there for after Hurricane Katrina, when everything was decimated. But certainly people were affected in a legal aspect. You know, custody arrangements were severely impacted. If homes were, entire communities were destroyed, then mom might have ended up over here, dad ended up way over here. You know, it impacted things like that, or landlord-tenant agreements, or mortgage issues and foreclosures, and I mean, just all kinds of things that were impacted from the devastation that Hurricane Katrina brought. We went down the next year to volunteer, to work in their legal aid office and things like that. And so that's what I was doing. I was working in legal aid. And anyway, when I was down there, the whole point is about sales taxes. I lived in Minnesota at the time. I was going to law school in Minnesota. And I was used to not paying tax on clothing. And when I went to go buy a pair of shoes, they said, oh, it's X amount. And I was like, what? Not only was there sales tax on clothes, but the tax between the local taxes and the state taxes on clothing was 13%. And this was back in whatever, 2026, or sorry, 2006. So 20 years ago. Oh my gosh, I'm old. Anyway, I was in law school 20 years ago. But anyway, so yeah, 20 years ago, the taxes, it was 13% tax on clothing down there. Anyway. Okay, lots of conversation back and forth. And again, if it's something you want me to see, you know, put that, oh, why does it do this? Where are we? Okay. Question. If you had a magic wand, what would you change first? Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. You know what I would do if I had a magic wand? I would do what I implemented in the Restore Freedom Initiative petition. One of the things I did in that petition, which would have been awesome sauce if we had actually been able to get enough signatures to get it on the ballot. But anyway, I would give teeth to the punishment of any government official at any level, state, local, federal, in any branch of government. I don't care if you're the school janitor or the president of the United States or the governor of a state or anywhere in between. Okay? If you work for the government in any capacity, volunteer or paid, if you violate provisions of the Constitution, state or federal, there should be consequences accordingly. Now, obviously, if it's intentional, it should be a bigger consequence than if it's accidental, because not everybody can know all things all the time. But there needs, obviously, if there's going to be individual consequences, that's individual incentive to damn well know what the Constitution allows and what it doesn't allow. So if I could change one thing about our country, it would be that there are real consequences for government officials violating the Constitution, so that there is no way that they could hide behind any kind of qualified immunity bullshit. There are real consequences for those violations. All right. And I have no idea what else we just talked about. We talked about taxes a lot, licensing. I don't know. Okay. Liberty Warrior says he can't name 3 people in the legislature who are worth a damn, and that includes the cabinet members. So I would say, I don't know that for sure. I don't know if I agree with that for sure or not. The names that I saw as sponsors for some of these bills that I was looking at just today are names that I don't recognize from going there the last few legislative sessions and talking to these individuals. So I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the people that are sponsoring some of these new bills were very were new to the legislature. I also have to say that our lieutenant governor, I still haven't bothered to take the time, I forgot to take the time to research how he became the lieutenant governor, because he was, I think it was a senator or representative, whatever, he was a state legislator last legislative session. I talked to him personally. I was supporting some of the bills that he was a sponsor of. And I was talking with him about making changes to some of the language that wasn't quite strong enough, or where there would be loopholes. And I thought they were very productive conversations. And all of a sudden I got a postcard that talked about, oh, we just love this, our lieutenant governor. And I'm like, why would you send that postcard? Obviously he's going to run for governor next election. Why else would you do that? But I did not even know he transitioned from state legislator to lieutenant governor. So very interesting. Shoot. I'm sorry, guys. It scrolled on me again. I apologize. I was almost at the end. I swear there were just questions that I missed. And I'm trying to see what they are. Okay, I don't know what happened, guys. I'm not seeing them. I feel like there were 3 or 4 questions right in a row that I don't see anymore. But I'll put it this way, even though we didn't actually have anybody call in, I think that probably worked out better, because, and I apologize, I forgot, I never did put the call-in number on the screen. But also, all of you were content at just putting your questions in the chat and not telling me, hey, by the way, what's the call-in number? So I feel like it went the way it was supposed to go. Okay, so at any rate, Gabriel Croft, I think you should take a look at what I some of my posts about on Sundays. Pay attention to my posts on Sundays every week, from the first Sunday we just had a week and a half ago to the one we just had 2 days ago. You'll find what I'm saying to be in alignment with your last comment there. Anyway, Liberty Warrior says that Collins, and that's the name of, I think it was Senator Collins. So Senator Collins, who is now the lieutenant governor of the state of Florida, has announced he wants to do away with free speech, which you're going to have to send me something on that Liberty Warrior. You know how to reach me better than most people. Send me whatever you're talking about. Give me the press release or the article or whatever, because I want to read exactly what you're talking about for myself. Don't send me 17 things. Send me the one thing. But no, he did not. Anyway, okay. So, and Liberty Warrior also just said that Collins just announced his run for governor. And that makes sense. I saw that coming. As soon as I got that postcard, and I'm like, why are they talking about randomly about this great guy that we have as lieutenant governor? That makes no sense. I knew that was the case. So anyway, we have been going for almost 2 solid hours, and he said it on a podcast. I'm sure there's an article about it. I do much better with reading it. If it's a short podcast that I can listen to, great. Otherwise, I do so much better with reading an article, and then I like source documents. I like being able to see it and reference it and quote it, and it's much easier on me than just something that's audio, you know. Anyway, I'm sure DeSantis is endorsing him because he isn't he who picked him as his lieutenant governor recently. So, okay. Oh, you're the one that just texted me. Okay. All right. So, as Lori says, please support me and my efforts by donating at restorefreedomkh.com/donate. Where did it go? Links. There we go. Did the postcard come in a bucket of BS? The postcard, I should have kept it. It literally said a whole bunch of nothing. What I did say is it gave a little bit more information about him personally that I did not know. It talked about him going back, and I kind of knew some of this, but I had forgotten it. It talked about him, he lost a leg while he was in the service. I forget which branch of the military he was in. But he lost a leg, and he ended up requalifying and reenlisting or going back into active duty after he had his prosthesis, put on. And anyway, so it talked about his military career, which all that is commendable. And it talked about a few other things that I agreed with, just things that I've known of him personally. And then just talked a little bit more about him as a family man and things like that. Just a little bit of that I didn't know. But it seemed to be a little odd of, like, this is odd. What is this for? Why am I getting this? And I think we got 2 of them. I think I got 2 of them. I don't think Mike got one and I got one. I think we got 2 of them. But anyway, well, I'm so glad that everyone is talking about it, Liberty Warrior, but I also am still doing, I've got to do the best that I can do with the resources and the time that I have. So I am still homeschooling full time. I am still fighting the fight for freedom with our house. I just don't know exactly right in this moment what that looks like. And I'm trying to get caught up for the last couple of years where I haven't been able to do any of the administrative background stuff. There's a lot of cleanup I need to do, especially since I'm doing all that by myself now. So I need to have time and energy to do all that while still getting content out to you guys. So no, I can't stay on top of everything. But somebody is asking, how do I start a civil discrimination case in Minnesota? I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but what I would do is look for, gosh, what does Minnesota call it? Hold on a second. Shoot. Oh. Okay. I think it's just called Minnesota Continuing Legal Education. They have publications, and they have different publications. Just like in Michigan, it's Institute of Continuing Legal Education, ICL. In Michigan and Minnesota, it's apparently, at least as of 20 years ago, it was Minnesota Continuing Legal Education is the organization that I have binders and different materials. Start with something like that that'll walk you through the basics. It's basically their materials for attorneys, but it'll walk you through the kinds of things. Look for stuff like that, where it's going to give you what kind of lawsuit is it really? Is it something that you want to file in federal court, or do you want to file it in state court? And it should, hopefully, you're looking for the kind of material that would give you information on what are the choices out there, and what are the differences between the different state court options and federal court options. And then once you know if you're filing in state or federal court, then that narrows down how do you do that. Sometimes you have to start with a notice of potential lawsuit. It might be called various different things. Other times you don't have to file any kind of notice. You just go ahead and file a lawsuit and then have it served. So it's hard for me to give you the exact next steps because it depends so much on the types of what you're looking for in that regard. But that's what I would do, is look for one of those books. The reason why I'm mentioning specifically the Minnesota Continuing Legal Education Organization is because that's, I'll just say, an accredited organization that the judges and attorneys utilize. I wouldn't necessarily go to one of all the books that are accounting for dummies or will drafting for dummies, things like that. Those kinds of documents or books, resources can be useful, but they're going to be a lot less reliable. And you would need to double check, no matter what resource you have, double check any kind of statute it refers to or case, look it up yourself, be familiar with it, and read the language to see if it's something that would be applicable to you. But that would be a good starting point. Okay. So, oh shoot. Okay. Wow, it's not letting me, okay, I can give you a thumbs up. There we go. Okay. Okay, let me just make sure. All right. He's also very tight with Randy Fine. Okay, well, for those of you watching the chat, I will say that Randy Fine, who is our congressman right now, is disgusting. And I don't know him as a person, but I've talked about him before. I talked about him before the special election. He filled a vacancy. And I talked about a specific scenario that happened. And anyway, I think there's issues, and I think he had like a D rating from a conservative perspective in terms of the kinds of things that he was trying to get enacted and the votes he took when he was serving in the Florida state legislature. But his voting record is no better now that he's a U.S. congressman for the state of Florida. But just because somebody is tight with somebody like that doesn't mean that they would vote or act the same way. I do have friends and family members that are different viewpoints politically than I am, and would vote a different way, but that doesn't mean that that's how I would vote, if that makes sense. So, okay, thank you for correcting, because a diet bag is a term I was not familiar with. Okay. So, looks like to this point, I've answered all questions, and since it is 1:59 and we've gone the full 2 hours, I will say thank you for joining me. Do please consider donating, whether it's $5, $10, $100, because I cannot continue this work if I'm only going to get $667 of donations for an entire year. I can't do it anymore. And I want to bring even more to you, but I need something to help keep things rolling. I need to be able to replace the stupid microphone if it's really going to cause problems, and I won't be able to do the call-in aspect of the show anymore. I need to be able to continue to pay for the internet, and some of the software and programs that I use. I do everything as cheap or low cost or no cost as I possibly can, but there are some costs, and for me to keep that work going, I need your support. I know times are tough and you want to support a lot of different people, but if you see any value specifically in what I'm doing, even a one-time $5 donation would be helpful. And I would suggest, if you can do it through on our website, we have all different ways, from Cash App to Venmo, which take no money out whatsoever, to PayPal or whatever. When it's done through the super chats, I really don't know where that money goes. I have not seen that money ever come to me. Literally. I don't know where it goes. So that's why I don't ask people to do super chats. I appreciate when you do it because I know what your intent is, but I literally don't get the money transferred to me. it like disappears. And I have accounts connected. If I have income from ads that come in, YouTube or Google pays me for that, but I don't get the super chat funds. So anyway, so with that being said, I did not even say, I was waiting for Jay Curvitt earlier, and this is at the very end of the show, but Jay Curvitt, if I remember correctly, sponsored today's show. So that is also an option if you go to our website, and you can see there's different ways. You could do it through PayPal that you can sponsor an episode. And if you do sponsor an episode, especially whether you're just a person or especially if you own your own business or have an organization that you want advertised, please let me know, and you can send me, whatever graphic or image. I'll throw it on the screen. If you have a little, a tagline or something that I can share for you, by all means. It can be a legit sponsorship. I have those opportunities available. It just so happens that with Jay Curvitt, I didn't get anything, advertisement wise, like an image or a tagline or anything that she shared with me that she wanted me to share with you. But I do at least want to mention that, and I greatly appreciate that. So if others of you want to join in and do that, that would be greatly appreciated. And so anyway, with that being said, please join us 2 Tuesdays from now. I guess that would be the 27th. January 27th at noon Eastern Standard Time. Bring your legal and constitutional questions. Do be prepared to put them in written format in the YouTube chat just in case whatever technical issue is happening, it continues and it makes it challenging to take on calls. But anyway, regardless, we will get your questions answered. And I thank you all for joining in today. I wish you a wonderful start to this new year, 2026. And I appreciate you tuning in for today's show. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day. Our work to restore freedom would not be possible without support from people just like you. From the various software and hardware needed to the legal research materials, every dollar you can donate helps. Make sure to like and share this video too. And remember to follow and subscribe and click that notification button. Together we can